an hour, it can almost stunt the growth a little bit because it's not happening quite on their terms through relationship.
We're here to break the stereotypes off of what makes a healthy man. There are so many times in culture that males are underrepresented in the conversation of healthy masculinity. And we are with our therapist from Crawford Clinics, Will Cole. He has been an educator for 7 to 8 years. He has worked with boys into adolescence, and he's really good as a therapist of helping unlock the heart of a boy. I'm grieved at how much our culture makes boys sound like they're just oafs, like they don't have a lot of emotion or brain, and you just feed them and they play video games. But even inside of that boy who may be addicted to video games and totally isolating, there is a heart, there is a calling, and there is a desire to connect. But we have to learn how to translate that. Will Cole, as a healthy man that we are proud, is going to help us dissect what is the woke part that we're not talking about of healthy masculine development, and what is the actual God-given potential that you as a parent can help unlock in your son. So, what is your story as a boy coming into masculinity and having good parents, but also going through a lot of those trials yourself?
Yeah, my story. So my story, relates very closely with what you said. I, as a young guy, was a very active young boy. I loved playing sports. I loved I loved being outside. I was kind of raised in an era where, we played video games, but they weren't nearly quite as cool as they are now. I mean, some of the games that I see students playing now, or just young boys playing, they're way better. So I mean, I didn't play video games as much, but my experience really growing up into the man that I am today really had to do with me learning to embrace who God called me to be, which was tough because, I was a more emotional kid. I was more in tune with my emotions, I think. I definitely knew I was feeling them. But then again, I was growing up playing football, basketball, baseball, and I had coaches and teammates who, we weren't talking about our feelings. we weren't talking openly about that kind of stuff. So, as I grew older and kind of grew into who God was calling me to be, it was tough because I had to embrace the unique qualities that I didn't really see all the time in the circles that I was in. And so learning to be like, okay, I can still love this sport. I can still love the things that I enjoy doing as a man. And I can be a more expressive guy or a guy who can be more open about his emotions while still being masculine. That was a new concept for me as I became into early adulthood. And it took some time, took some trials to be like, okay, this is who God's calling me to be. And I accept the challenge, and I am full on with it.
Yeah, I love that. So at Crawford Clinics, our passion is to help people recognize the facets of their personality. And I think it's, for me, an injustice of what has happened to men, where it's like, you're either a bro and you only are a dude who does sports and like hits on chicks, or you're like this like gay, sweet, soft, little emotional. And so our culture has actually made it very like, males are then wanting to be females because we've feminized culture, and we've really allowed what would be maybe helpful for a female to grow up to then be placed on boys. They're not getting enough challenge. They're not getting enough opportunities to like fight and conquer and get dirty and have messes. They're sitting quietly for hours. There's things that I think in society are not setting up boys to be able to represent all the different sides of them. So I think you naturally then see well, then I'm this category or this category. And what we'd love is, and we've spoken about this before, is putting the and in the conversation. And that's what I'm hearing you say of like, there's the me that's artistic. There's the me that feels. There's a me that's athletic. There's a me that's made for conquest and championships and blood and gore. And there's a part of me that's really innovative and loves science and geeks out on learning, letting all of those sides. So I think as a parent that we're not just overly attending to one side or another, but we're showing interest in all of that.
Yep.
And to underscore what you said, I didn't see a lot of men doing that. And that's really hard. So for you today to be married to a beautiful woman, have a child, like now you have this successful career, navigating through a lot of those cultural subcontext without a lot of masculine models.
Yep.
What was that like for you to try to kind of piece that together for yourself?
Yeah, like I was saying before, it was a journey. And it involved making mistakes. It involved, pursuing the wrong girl and getting turned down. It included applying for this job and not just getting a no, but getting a hard no. like we don't want you here, kind of thing. And learning to really accept the conquest that God had for me without telling myself that I was a failure. I failed at this, but I'm not a failure. And it took years. There were quite a few years in kind of my college years where I was pretty down on myself and I was feeling like a failure, like I didn't measure up. And I think that's, in a lot of circles, that's really what we see as kind of the dominant question that young men are asking is, do I measure up? And if the answer is no,
in their own heart, even if nobody's saying it.
Yep.
If I just believe that as a boy.
Yeah, no, and I will be clear too. I don't think anybody ever told me, Will, you don't measure up. It's a message that I internalized.
Right.
And God had to kind of build me back up. And it, like I was saying, was very much a process. And it was people saying yes to me that kind of got me slowly there. It was people going out of their way to speak life into me when I wasn't necessarily expecting it, whether it was my parents or a coworker, a supervisor, a coach, various people would just kind of give me little nuggets as I look back and reflect. And I'm sure I haven't been able to thank everybody, but in God's perfect timing, different words were spoken to kind of help build me back up in certain ways.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to know the power of words before the person displays them. And so we've talked about this before, that my dad is my hero, right? He's a guy, he's in construction, he's not like a feely, cuddly, but he would just, I guess, hear the Lord or something, but he would call me a leader when I was the most not leader you've ever met. Like I was a total follower. I was soft-hearted, I was nice, I was a people pleaser, and I was just one of those kids that wanted to fit in. And my dad would say over and over, you need to start taking leadership classes because you're going to be a leader one day. I never told him at the time, oh my gosh, this is deeply impacting the trajectory of my life. He saw something before it was there. He kept saying it without me affirming the power of his words. It's actually me as an adult looking back and seeing those seeds that were planted with no evidence that now I'm harvesting and living in that today.
Yep.
So let's talk about the power of words in seeing something, calling it out before it exists. Because most of us, by human nature, your kid's lazy, you're just like, oh my gosh, the last thing you want to say is you're hardworking. Like you're being disrespectful. The last thing I want to say is you have honor in your culture. Like it's really hard to see the opposite and to profess it over them out loud and say it with conviction. And that's one of the things I've seen to change people the most at Crawford Clinics. Yeah. When we speak identity over our clients, whether it's family therapy, child, adolescent, adults, being able to speak identity, what is not existing yet, And as a parent, knowing even though you don't hear, good job, mom, dad, your words are powerful, to do it anyway, to be consistent anyway.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
No, I 100% agree, but I also empathize with the parent knowing it's hard.
Yeah.
Like when you are trying so hard to do exactly what you're saying and speak life into your kid, and you're just getting an eye roll,
Yeah.
or you're just getting a groan, or even
Yeah.
some back talk that can get ugly.
Yeah.
Doing it anyway
Yeah.
is hard.
And you're not getting anything in return. That can be really
And not
empty.
immediately. Yeah. I will say, though, those words, in spite of the eye rolls and all those things, are impacting that
Absolutely.
young man
Yeah.
more than the parent's going to know. Like, so many times as a teenager, I remember being told very similar things, and I didn't know how to tell my parents, hey, this means a lot to me. It also didn't mean a whole lot to me at the time. Those seeds are being planted. It's almost like we want to like plant a seed and expect it to grow right away.
Right.
When in reality, we just planted the seed. We have to give it time. We have to water it. And that seed very well could grow into something great. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at you and the leader you are today. And
I didn't pay him to say that.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I mean, your dad's words were incredible and huge. And you probably didn't know at the time.
I didn't even believe him.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, I was like, this person is not going to ever be a leader. And yet I know for a fact that it was being planted inside. It's powerful.
Yep, absolutely. And so just to encourage parents that, if you're not seeing the fruits right away, in God's perfect timing, the encouragements, the words of affirmation, and not just the words, but the actions that are encouraging, your young man,
And facial expressions.
nonverbal communication cues, all the details. There's going to be fruits there that in time, he's taking in.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of things that, I have a good relationship with my dad. But there's times when I do reflect with him kind of on my childhood, and I'm sure there's things that I tell him that he had no idea I was taking in, at such a young age, because, kids are very, very intuitive that way.
Absolutely. And I want to hit on that because I think a lot of times we are looking just on the outside and we don't always recognize the whole inner world, and especially for boys.
Yep.
I don't know why culture just undersells boys and acts like they're like Neanderthals or something, but like boys are deep and they have brilliant hearts. They're so soft. And a lot of times guys become bros later because they've been treated like a bro for so long. They put heart walls up and they don't even know what they're thinking and feeling because nobody has said, hey bud, how did that impact you?
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times, kind of going off of that, it takes young men time
Yeah.
to find their voice. And, I think about my story. And so I grew up with 3 sisters, no brothers. So I would go to my sports practices that I was mentioning before.
Yeah.
And there were times when I honestly felt a little bit feminine, just because that was what I was around as a young guy at home. And so I remember going to college for the first time, at 18, living in a guy's dorm. And that was so hard for me my first year.
Good adjustment.
Just being around guys that were just, playing video games, playing games. I mean, it wasn't until really my 3rd year of college, as a 20-year-old, that I was like, okay, I got this, and I look at who I was then compared to who I was as an 18-year-old freshman, and you probably wouldn't have even recognized, the two differences, because it took time to find my voice among other men. And there was nothing wrong with my upbringing. There was nothing wrong with, there were lots of benefits to being raised around sisters.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm very, very grateful for now, especially as a a married man myself, especially boys around other men, learning to find their voice can take some time.
How can parents help facilitate that? Because some people might be listening. It could be a single mom. I mean, there's a lot of different family structures. And how can they help a boy be in situations where they're around healthy men, not unsupervised? We now live in a crazy world, but around healthy men during the daylight and getting that mentorship, learning how to find their voice, learning how to be a man in this context, but not losing their own heart and their own like convictions to not just laugh at porn or be at the level that the society is creating as a normal, but like stewarding both spaces. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. We had talked a little bit before, about kind of the power of your presence and holding that space for curiosity. Yeah. As parents, it can become, for good reason, pretty easy to get into the habit of directing, because that's a very important part of parenting. But finding that space to have a curious posture, to wonder, okay, where is my son's heart right now, and to have it be okay to maybe not get the answer right away. Sometimes it takes time to really gain an understanding of where he's really at when it comes to certain things, like you mentioned laughing at porn or trying to find a stance on something. Sometimes taking the time to understand his point of view will help get to more of the root of what he's really going through, because a lot of our guys, they're not always coming home and telling you exactly what's going on with their day. Boys or girls, really.
Yeah.
Sometimes having that safe space by having just that state of curiosity, by asking open-ended questions, and sometimes being okay with a little bit of a pause. Or if they do give you a sigh, rather than saying, don't sigh at me, but wondering, okay, where's that sigh coming from?
Yeah.
And holding space for it for a moment. That doesn't mean we allow for disrespect. It just means that we just hold a space of curiosity, wondering, okay, where's this really coming? Because it could have nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
Because as a teacher, I've learned there's so much that our kids are taking in every day that we don't see.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I would say one of the coolest transformations that when we were working with a family at Crawford Clinics, that the mom had two idyllic kids, and then the middle child was the annoying, the son that was disruptive. He was the ADHD problem child, and she would jokingly talk about it in front of him. And so you could tell that it was like a family joke. It seemed fine. It seemed polite to laugh. But actually, I was really aware that in her own hurt and frustration, the dad was kind of in and out of the picture. I think they were kind of going through a separation. And she was feeling overwhelmed, and she was having to contend with a really strong-willed, difficult middle child with ADHD and all the things, right? And then her two idyllic kids. And so without realizing it, her own hurt, disillusionment, disappointment was all getting channeled at him.
Yep.
And so he took that and was acting out to try to find his voice, trying to find place where he belongs. And so when we separated her to just kind of care for her own heart and the things that she was going through, as parents, we have to do our own work. We have to pause and go, okay, am I forming judgments against my kid? Am I starting to think that they are just lazy and selfish and no good for nothing and can't wait till they move out? Then be aware of that, because they can feel that. Kids are so intuitive, and they will act out that pain, that misunderstanding, even if you're not saying it with your words.
Yeah.
70% of our communication comes out through our tone, our body language, our facial expressions. And so when I took her into a restoring self-cohesion session, which means I stand in the gap and I'm honoring what she's gone through, I'm repenting and repairing for what her dad did, for now what her second husband had done, and now what her son is doing, and how overwhelmed, scared, afraid, and angry and upset she is, that she has somebody constantly working against her. When we were able to help her heal, and she was able to forgive her son and go to him and actually repair, Because a lot of times we try to do behavior modification even in ourselves, where we go, okay, now I'm going to be present. I'm going to give you all this eye contact. I'm going to spend time with you. Let's do this bonding thing.
Formula. Yeah.
And it's artificial because you lost their heart a long time ago. And kids need apologies just as much as parents. Now, we're not saying you as a parent should just, I'm sorry, and try to be their best friend. We're not saying that. But we are saying human to human, to lead by example, to take those holy moments where you humble yourself and say, hey, I think I really lost my temper and I'm really sorry. What was the impact that that had on you? Hey, I think for a while, I haven't really been listening. And my hurt, I think I've hardened my heart towards you, and you've probably been feeling left out, isolated, unwanted, not belonging in this family. And I want to say that I'm sorry and take responsibility for how that may have impacted you. Now, that takes a lot of ego strength, which is, yes, the child's doing something. Yes, there's context, but I'm the adult and I'm modeling for that child how to take healthy responsibility. We spend so much time correcting and fixing our kids that we don't realize, man, have I been slicing and dicing so much that their heart is turned off toward me. And I have to actually earn the right to speak into their life again.
Yes, that's so good. And, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking about how often we want our kids to take responsibility. And sometimes the best way we can teach them is by taking responsibility ourselves and modeling that for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when the mom was able to heal and go to her son and repent and say, I'm sorry, we also are holistic at Crawford Clinics. So they found out, oh, he also is diabetic. And so an unknown factor is how much his blood sugar, his ability to focus or not focus, his hyperactivity. And so when he was put on the appropriate amount of insulin, there was also a medical factor that was totally unaware up to that point. So there's many things going on with your kids that they might need you to see them at a different level, to speak leadership. And so I had her to start speaking over the son. You're a leader. You are kind. You're respectful. Now, she felt ridiculous. She felt like a hypocrite because it's like, I don't believe that. But when she was able to forgive her son and actually start proclaiming what she was sensing the Lord would say about her son, he has now grown up and he is a youth leader in his church.
That's good.
That strength, that resilience, that hard-heartedness became a really great strength in being a youth leader to help equip boys to become men. Because again, if everything is so sweet and soft and nurturing and feminine in our culture, we don't know how to make strong men that have to have a challenge and a conquest. And so he learned how to be masculine, how to go out. We helped him get some mentors. And so he started doing some of those outdoor camps and those conquest things where he had to fight and challenge things, you know, those kind of things. And then the mom would play video games with him. So she entered into his world and they would play together and be on the same team. So where before he felt like the middle child, the bad one, the black sheep, unwanted in the family, she now reversed it by entering into his world, by putting him in places where she didn't have a man in her home to do it. So she put that around him. And we medically also made sure neurochemical, hormones, all the things were in right alignment to set him up for success. Down the road, he became a very successful engineer, and he is amazing at what he does. So there's stories that you can really change the trajectory of someone's life if you, one, work on yourself, right? Work on ourselves, and then we will show up differently when we're with the child.
Yeah, for some reason, I keep getting, as you're talking, I keep going back to almost like a comeback story, you know, and, you know, because like you were saying at the beginning, you know, we're not saying all of this to make anybody feel bad.
No,
you know,
not
at all. Or to say that like everything you've been doing as a parent's been wrong, you know. But no, it's great to see how, through that taking responsibility, through changing our postures, through doing the things that you said she didn't want to do, like saying those words, like, I don't know if I believe this right now. That had an impact that created a comeback story for him, and it's nice to know that even the mistakes that we make can be repaired.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, regardless of what I may have said, or years in the past where I may not have been the best parent or the best leader or the best example, that we really can shift the trajectory and create that comeback story. It's not necessarily going to be on our terms per se, because it's our kids that we're talking with here, and it's about their lives.
They have free will.
They have the free will. But we can initiate that.
Yeah. That's so good. So we had talked about anybody who's out there who hasn't heard of John Eldredge, highly recommend. He has a ton of material. Wild at Heart is a classic for raising boys. I've also really enjoyed The Amazing Development of Men, I believe is what it's called. And she's just a researcher who really talks about the stages of masculine growth. So as a parent, we want to equip you. If you want a session to navigate, how do I do this? How do I lean in? Will is available. He'll do a free consult with you, and you can do some parent coaching. You can get your son in and help him process and develop his inner world and the complexity and brilliance of all the different aspects of him. So he emerges out of being a little boy with a big adult body into an actual man who is masculine. And Will is a great asset to your family. Some of us don't have that dynamic in the home. And so you can build that in by having a really good therapist who's kind of like a mentor or a role model for your son, but better trained and knows a really deep amount of work to get him there. Oh my gosh, so we could talk about this all day long, but any last words that you want to say to these parents as we're wrapping up?
Yeah, so parents, I encourage you to say these words to your kids, and say it with conviction. You are strong. I believe in you. You are a child of God, and you're loved.
Yeah. And you have what it takes. Tell your boys you have what it takes. It's in you. You are a leader. You're an influencer, and you shape the future. Even though they don't show it today, believe it, speak it, and you'll watch the results over time. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you for the next episode.